Ford fights big booze while Smith scolds the schools. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
Navigating the issues that matter to you. It's Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
Their premiers venting their frustrations. Let's start today in Ontario. That's where Premier Doug Ford went off script again and delivered what may be his most viral rant yet. Ford was in Kitchener, where he popped his lid over news that global spirits giant Diageo is closing a plant in Amherstburg, Ontario, throwing 200 people out of work.
I always say smart people aren't too smart, and you guys are about as dumb as a bag of hammers for doing this. So, you know something? I found a bottle, and I don't even drink, of Crown Royal, right? I see that Crown Royal. I saw it at home. So this is what I think about Crown Royal. That's what they could do. And I think everyone else should do the same thing. Start supporting companies that make whiskey here by Ontario people. That's what we need to do, is support each other.
That's right. That's the Premier of Ontario taking the cap off of a bottle of Crown Royal and pouring it onto the ground. And then when the whiskey wasn't coming out of the bottle fast enough, Ford moved away from his microphone for added effect.
I wish I could get this out coming out quicker, but I'll stand here until it's all done. Anyways, folks, thank you. My brothers and sisters in Unifor over at Crown Royal, I got your backs. We're going to be there to help you. And by the way, I'm going to send you the cleaning bill to Crown Royal, too.
Diageo came to own Crown Royal through its acquisition back in the year 2000 of Seagram. In addition to Crown Royal, it purchased Captain Morgan and Seagram's VO. The company says the production in Amherstburg will move to the United States, but that it will maintain a quote-unquote significant footprint in Canada, including its headquarters and warehouse operations in the Greater Toronto area, and bottling and distillation facilities in Manitoba and Quebec. The Gimli Distillery in Manitoba has been making Crown Royal since 1968. Then there's Alberta, where Alberta Premier Danielle Smith is up to her eyeballs in education politics. The school year just started with teachers threatening to go on strike, and her government has been at odds with school officials over age-appropriate content in school libraries. The premier wanted graphic sexual material banned from school libraries after books containing sexually graphic scenes were found in libraries in some Edmonton public schools. School officials in that city responded by coming up with a list of 200 books that would be part of a book ban. The list included works by George Orwell, Margaret Atwood, and Alice Munro. During a news conference, Premier Smith showed some of the material that she says parents brought to her attention, images so graphic they could never be shown on television. There are now suggestions the school board deliberately started a book ban to score political points against the premier.
This all began because these were the images that parents were showing us that were accessible to children in elementary school libraries. And so we asked school boards to use their discretion to identify books that might not be age appropriate for elementary school children. And then and Edmonton Public is clearly doing a little vicious compliance over what the direction is. And so if they need us to hold their hand through the process to identify what kind of materials are appropriate for senior high school students, what kind of materials are appropriate for junior high school students, and what kind of materials are appropriate for elementary school students, we will more than happily work with them to work through their list one by one so we can be super clear about what it is we're trying to do. We are trying to take sexually explicit content out of elementary schools that is inappropriate for me to show on the television news at night, and so it is inappropriate for 7-year-olds to see. That's what our objective is.
It's back to the drawing board with that policy in Alberta. The Smith government is going to rewrite the ministerial order about what counts as sexually explicit content, with Smith tweeting, "Get graphic pornographic images out of school libraries and leave the classics on the shelves." While Premier Smith has her education minister dealing with that file, her traveling roadshow set up camp in Medicine Hat yesterday. This is the Alberta Next panel. It's going across Alberta, hearing from people about Alberta's relationship with the government in Ottawa. And immigration has been one of the hottest issues.
I'm really concerned about the way that this question is framed, and it actually goes with the gentleman that just spoke before me. This idea of should Alberta take more control of immigration to counter Ottawa's open border policy. The video uses language such as unvetted, open borders, and savings to social programs, which is misleading, and it's dangerous. This
sort of what's happening.
So that's what's happening even in this room. That's the concern. So this kind of messaging encourages anti-immigrant sentiment at a time that we need to be building understanding and not fear. The reality is people don't come to Alberta to exploit social programs.
Premier Smith said there's no question high immigration levels are straining public resources.
With 150,000 people coming a year versus 50,000 a year, which has been our experience the last 3 years, it becomes overwhelming of all of our systems. You're seeing it in classrooms that are overcrowded, complexity in classrooms, English language learners. People can't find a family doctor. We can't build homes fast enough. There just is a pace that you can keep up with. So we're looking at all of those things.
Despite having to stick handle through a lot of these hot button issues, the last time the polling firms were doing polling on Alberta politics, the UCP, led by Premier Smith, enjoyed a large double-digit lead over the NDP, led by former Calgary Mayor Naheed Nenshi. While in Ontario, if an election was held today, Doug Ford's PC party would win a fourth consecutive massive majority government. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Well, in federal politics today, it's T-minus 12 days and it's Battleground GTA. The House of Commons will be back in action in a dozen days on September 15th. And ahead of the circus rolling back into the nation's capital, the Prime Minister is huddling with his cabinet members in Toronto. It's a 2-day meeting to plot strategy for the months ahead. And ahead of that meeting, Mark Carney took some time to meet news reporters and said this meeting is about setting the government's priorities.
We're meeting at it during challenging economic times. We know that. Fundamentally, we have this U.S.-driven transformation of the global trading system with impacts on Canada. We have a riskier global environment. We have changes in technology that bring both promise but also dislocation. And so the focus of the government from the start has been on what we can control. Can't necessarily control the U.S. trade actions, global developments, technology, but we can control how we build this economy here at home. And so when we look forward, a focus on launching Build Canada Homes, core to our goal of doubling the pace of home building over the course of the next decade. Accelerating, identifying and accelerating the implementation of major projects. A focus on an industrial strategy in this changing global environment.
It's widely expected the government's top priorities, as you heard from the Prime Minister, will be housing, moving ahead with projects in the national interest, dealing with tariffs from the Trump administration and China, addressing weakness in the Canadian economy, and coming up with a federal budget this fall, and what the government might be doing to cut costs. Mark Carney was asked if spending cuts could be on the way for big government departments like Indigenous Services.
The government needs to spend precious taxpayers' dollars as carefully as possible. So big focus on reducing our operational spending, think of it as our day-to-day spending, while at the same time catalyzing enormous investment in those big projects and building homes. With respect to, David, your reference to Indigenous Canadians and the focus there. Our focus is working with Indigenous Canadians. Our focus is working with them, obviously to support health, educational outcomes, infrastructure in their communities, but as true partners in building this country.
That answer wasn't good enough for some news reporters who wanted to corner Carney on cuts.
The federal government has been growing spending as a whole at over 7% a year on average for over a decade. That's twice the rate of growth of the economy on average. It's not a sustainable situation. So we need to rein in spending. We need to find efficiencies. We're in the process of finding efficiencies. One of the big elements of the discussions over the next 2 days will be about those efficiencies. It won't be the final discussion of that. We'll continue to work on this right up to the budget. So we need to do that. But at the same time, we need to invest as a country. And it's finding those efficiencies. It's the responsible thing to do with Canadians' money. This is Canadians' money. It's not the government's money. It's a responsible thing to do with that. But in finding those efficiencies, we create the room for these big investments.
That was the Prime Minister Mark Carney today in a hotel room in Toronto. The leader of the Conservative Party, Pierre Poilievre, wasn't too far away. He was in Mississauga, saying the government needs to do something about immigration and the temporary foreign worker program.
Now, the Liberals promised they would cap the temporary foreign worker program at 82,000, but in the first 6 months, they've already handed out 105,000 permits. To put this into perspective, if they do the same number of permits for temporary foreign workers in the next 6 months that they did in the last, they will break the record again with over 200,000 temporary foreign workers coming in to take jobs when our own young people are facing record unemployment. The Liberals have to answer, why is it that they're shutting our own youth out of jobs and replacing them with low-wage temporary foreign workers from poor countries who are ultimately being exploited? And let us say as well, the people, the individual temporary foreign workers, the workers themselves, they are not bad people. They are not the problem. They are being taken advantage of by liberal corporate elites who want to use them to drive down wages.
And on the coming session of Parliament and going after Mark Carney instead of Justin Trudeau this time around, Pierre Poilievre said Mark Carney offers just more of the same.
So far, Mark Carney has not found a single penny in new savings. While he promised to spend less, in the 5 months he's been Prime Minister, he's increased the cost of the government by 8%. 33% more federal public servants are earning over $100,000 under Mark Carney. He's increased the cost of consultants by 37%. And if you believe economists, they calculate Mark Carney's deficit could be twice as big as Justin Trudeau's, which is unimaginable. No one thought it was possible to have a worse deficit than Trudeau, but Mark Carney appears to have accomplished it. What I would say to everyone is, ignore Mark Carney's speeches, the letters he writes his ministers, which then get conveniently leaked to the media. It doesn't matter what he says. It matters what he does.
Pierre Poilievre in Mississauga with another sign that summer is soon over and the political season is about to begin anew. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
And if you're ever looking for a podcast of our show, Now You Know with Rob Snow, we have a great new mobile app. It'll help you hear our show when you want to. Listen live, listen to the podcast. It's called the Seeker app. That's Seeker, spelled S-E-E-K-R. And it has all kinds of exclusive audio that you won't hear anywhere else. News, music, and sports. And you can download Seeker for iOS or Android. That's Seeker, spelled S-E-E-K-R. And Now You Know with Rob Snow is also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. And speaking of sports, as a Jays fan, all I could think yesterday was, oh my goodness, the Blue Jays needed that one. It wasn't what you would call a Picasso. No doubt about that. But at least the Jays offense sprung to life. They had 4 runs in the first inning on their way to a 12-9 win over the Cincinnati Reds. The Jays were actually leading this game 8-1 after the top of the second, but then the Reds stormed back with 5 runs of their own in the bottom half of the second inning to make a game of it. George Springer, what can you say about this guy? 2 home runs, went 3 for 4. Bo Bichette, another tremendous season for Bo Bichette, chipped in with a 3-run home run. But as you can imagine, it was not a great outing for Blue Jays starter Jose Barrios. He was pulled after only 2 innings, as I mentioned, giving up 5 runs in the bottom of the second. But with the win, the Jays remain atop the standings in the American League East. But my goodness, how it has tightened in recent weeks. The Jays 2.5 games ahead of both the Yankees and the Red Sox today. Both won yesterday. The Yankees 7-1 over the Astros. The Red Sox won 11-7 over Cleveland. The Jays will now wrap up their series against the Reds today. Shane Bieber will be on the mound for the Jays. And then, they look ahead to one of their biggest tests of the season so far, because starting Friday, the Jays are going to be on the road in New York for a series against the Yankees. That's going to be one to watch all weekend long. Game time tonight in Cincinnati for the series finale in Cincinnati, 6:40 p.m. Eastern time. You can catch all the Jays action on Sportsnet. Listen to the games on the radio at 95.7 News Radio in Halifax, 570 News Radio in Kitchener, and on 960 Sportsnet, the Fan in Calgary. The jackpot. These American lotteries are crazy. The jackpot in the Powerball lottery in the United States is now $1.3 billion. $1.3 billion. There was, it topped $1 billion on Labor Day Monday, but there was no winner on Monday. So the next draw for Powerball in the U.S. is tonight. Now, unlike in Canada, lottery winnings, as you probably know, are taxed in the United States. So if there is a winner of this draw tonight, the winner will take home almost $600 million after the tax man takes his share. But $600 million, my goodness, it's the 5th largest Powerball jackpot in history. Here in Canada, no winner for the Lotto Max jackpot last night. The next draw is coming up on Friday, and that is worth a tidy. It's not $600 million, but I'm sure most of us could get by with a tidy $50 million. Just ahead, political season getting back into the swing of things, less than 2 weeks removed from the resumption of Parliament, and we'll talk politics today on our Newsday panel. Right after the latest breaking news, I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
on News Radio.
It's time for our Newsday political panel with the House of Commons getting back into the swing of things in less than 2 weeks from now. We heard from both the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition today. Jordan Paquet is back with us. Vice President, Bluesky Strategy Group. How are you?
Great, Rob. How you doing?
Just great. Welcome back. Great to hear from you.
Thanks so much.
Alex Chreston is Vice President, Crestview Strategy. How are you today, Alex?
Fantastic. Thanks for having me.
You're in Toronto?
Yep. Right downtown, center of the universe.
Can we put you in the bullpen for the Jays? Do you think you could do any good work?
They're relying on me. Look, I'm a baseball fan, but definitely not a pitcher. I've tried to help my son warm up. It's not good.
All right. Well, let's get into what's going on today in politics. It's kind of battleground GTA today. You had the Prime Minister having a 2-day cabinet meeting in Toronto, Pierre Poilievre, with his own news conference in Mississauga targeting immigration. But when you think back over the last, say, few months in federal politics, what were the highs and lows of the summer for these two? Why don't we start with Mark Carney? Highs and lows for Mark Carney during the summer off season, if you will. Alex, what would you say?
I think, he started out this summer so strong in terms of really in June having some of the highest approval ratings that any prime minister has ever had. And then towards the end, kind of reaching our own self-appointed deadline for trade negotiation, kind of coming up short of a new deal. Now all that sort of continues to play out, but if it certainly started out high and has ended off in a much more questionable position.
Okay, so started hot, but kind of cooling off. Just kind of, he's kind of like the weather, I guess, in that way. All right, okay. Let's. What do you think, Mark Carney? Highs and lows of the summer political season, such as it was for the prime minister. What would you say, Jordan?
Yeah, I do tend to agree with Alex. It does seem they came out of the election and out of the spring session. I think there was some goodwill on all sides, but it just seems that they're running out of steam a little bit when it came down to some of these trade things. Look, there's a couple positive things, getting this major project office launched with a very qualified CEO and someone like Don Farrell. I think he can look to issues like that as an accomplishment. But then when it comes down to the reason he got elected in the first place, and that was that he was going to be the one that could best deal with Donald Trump, I mean, he completely capitulated and moved on back in August. So I think that's got to be seen as a bit of a low for him, and he's really going to have to find a way to bolster his brand somehow, because it can't just be all about Donald Trump all the time now, because he's completely shifted his position on it.
Okay, just on that one announcement there, the major projects office, because they have a lot of political capital staked on Bill C-5, this projects in the national interest legislation. It surely will not go unnoticed in Alberta, for example, that it's going to be headquartered in Calgary. What did you think of that decision, Jordan?
Yeah, I think that's certainly, as I was saying, I mean, I was out around Stampede at the start of summer, and there seemed to be some goodwill around the business community there for the new Carney government, in that specifically, they might not have been super happy that it wasn't the Conservatives that won, but at the same time, they're very glad that this was a market change from Justin Trudeau, in that it seemed like there could be an appetite to finally get some stuff built. So I think certainly, it was throwing a bit of a bone to Alberta to have somebody like Dawn Farrell come in as CEO, who came a very prominent businesswoman in the area, get her to go and run the office. Yeah, I think that's certainly a positive and something that'll look well there. But what's good, it's going to have to come down to is results. And that's been the biggest thing, is Carney set the bar very, very high for himself. And so he's got to start delivering now. Not to say a pipeline has to be built tomorrow, but we got to start seeing, some progress on some certain files.
Okay. Just on the major projects office, because as I say, there's a lot of political capital riding on that and getting projects moving, releasing a list, getting, approvals underway. Putting that office in Calgary, what do you think of that decision, Alex?
Yeah, I think, look, we haven't seen a pipeline announced or built yet, but putting it in Calgary certainly gives you the idea that this is that kind of infrastructure is going to be what we're going to see. Energy infrastructure, export infrastructure is going to be the most important thing if Canada is going to find markets to the east and west. And that's certainly a signal, and Mark Carney's been very good at sending signals. And like Jordan said, let's see what happens when it comes to results.
Yeah, I mean, the premier seemed pleased about that decision, and your old boss, Jordan, Ron Ambrose, not enough nice things to say about the person running that office as well. High praise, from a very high-profile conservative for the decisions made on the major projects office. Okay, look, why don't we stop here? And when we come back, we'll talk about how Pierre Poilievre spent his summer. It probably wasn't how he had hoped to spend his summer. He probably had hoped to be calling movers and moving into Rideau Cottage. It just didn't turn out that way. Instead, it was a by-election in Battle River Crowfoot. So we'll talk about some of the highs and lows for Pierre Poilievre when we come back. It's our Newsday political panel today here on News Radio.
You have questions
Now You Know with Rob Snow has the answers.
on News Radio.
Our Newsday political panel today with Jordan Paquet, Vice President, Bluesky Strategy Group, Alex Chreston, Vice President, Crestview Strategy. Talking about the highs and lows of our political leaders here in this country. Mark Carney, Pierre Poilievre. We talked about Mark Carney. What about Pierre Poilievre, Jordan? Not the summer he expected, but I guess got the job done in winning a by-election in Battle River Crowfoot. What were some of the highs and lows of the summer political season for Pierre Poilievre, in your opinion?
Yeah, so I think some of the lows coming out of the election, leading into perhaps the early part of the summer, were just some questions surrounding his future, what direction that might take. Some of the infighting that typically happens inside the Conservative Party, or really any party after an election loss. But certainly the high would be triumphantly winning that by-election and then jumping right back in the saddle, so to speak, with the unified caucus, with massive amounts of support seemingly amongst the grassroots of the party, and getting ready to make a return to the House of Commons this fall. I think he has really sort of played all of this out in the best possible way as far as the scenario goes, is losing the election. I think it was the right strategy to sort of lay low a bit over the summer, hang out in Alberta, and then come back with a bang this fall. And there's some signs that he'll be able to jump in right back to where he was on some of these issues, which I know we'll probably talk about after. But, you see a shrinking economy, immigration issues, perhaps recession, some of this trade stuff that's happening. It's all issues that Pierre is going to be able to jump right back onto. And I think that's what he started to do and really start to find that narrative again.
Okay. Highs and lows of the summer for Pierre Poilievre. What were they, in your opinion, Alex?
Yeah, not much of a surprise here, but the lows definitely that hangover from the election. But the highs, living the fight again and winning pretty convincingly in the by-election. So coming out on a high point, and that's got to be the best thing, because a lot of leaders, if you win an election, if you lose an election and lose your seat, that's the end of your career. But living to fight another day is a pretty good feat, and indicative of a leader that I think still has a lot of support.
And I would add, Alex, outside of a few people whispering a few things in news reporters' ears, I mean, it's not like he faced any kind of uprising or rebellion within the Conservative caucus over the election result. I'm sure there was immense disappointment given how close they came, but it wasn't though the knives were out in any big way for him.
I've worked for leaders who have lost elections and worked for leaders who have lost their seat in those elections, and I've certainly seen a lot more knives come out. Usually they're quiet. Usually people don't want to, put their name on it. But usually there is a much bigger backlash, and I think it's sort of indicative of how much support that Pierre Poilievre has from the grassroots of the party, how much he's grown the grassroots of the party, that folks know that he's going to have another kick at the can.
Okay, Jordan. So Justin Trudeau was a relatively easy target for Pierre Poilievre to attack, especially after 10 years in office, but that might not be the case with Mark Carney. How will Poilievre go after a relatively new and popular prime minister?
Yeah, I mean, look, Trudeau became an easy target. He was around for a while. He had a lot of embarrassing gaffes, and Canadians were fed up with him, so it was easy to oppose him. Carney is a bit newer on the block, but at the same time, he was elected, as I think we were talking about in the last segment, in many areas because he was seen as the best one to deal with Trump. But the results so far on that haven't been that positive. And as I know we've talked about in previous panels back in the spring, Carney set the bar extremely high for himself. And so if he's not going to come in and deliver on some of these issues, it leaves spots for Pierre Poilievre to capitalize on. If people are still struggling with the cost of living, which they are, he can continue on that track, as he's been. That's an area where I think Carney is still seen as a bit weak. If Poilievre really just dials in on some of those issues that was able to have him build this voter coalition that supports the Conservatives in the last election, younger working class voters, then he's on the right track with some of this right now, and I think he'll find it pretty easy going sometimes.
What do you think, Alex?
Yeah, look, Poilievre has been really effective over the last number of years of identifying issues that resonate with those younger middle-class Canadians and working-class Canadians, staying on top of them, week after week and month after month, and really leading on those on the issues that resonate the most. And you don't have to be an economist to be wary about the road ahead for the Canadian economy. And the job of being Prime Minister is going to get harder, not easier, as we go down this path. And those pain points that resonate with Canadians in their day-to-day lives are going to become more challenging and less predictable. And I suspect that Poilievre's going to stay on those issues.
We'll talk a little bit more about some of the messaging that we're hearing from Poilievre, the accusation that he hasn't learned much from the election defeat, that when you listen to Poilievre now versus then, he is kind of playing the same old tune. Ask our political analysts about that. And Doug Ford pouring out a perfectly good bottle of Crown Royal to express his anger over the closure of a plant in Ontario. We've all seen some political stunts in our day. We'll ask our panelists what they thought of that one when we come back. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio.
With our Newsday political panelists today, Jordan Paquet and Alex Chreston. When you listen to Poilievre's latest messaging, whether today, issues like immigration, temporary foreign worker program, the other day, crime, day before that, carbon tax 2.0, is this a political operative hitting the right notes or playing the same old tune? Alex, what would you say?
Look, these are exactly the kind of issues that I was talking about before. These are the kind of things that will resonate with people when times get tough. When times get tough, people look at their lives and think, well, what changed in my life back when it was prosperous and predictable, right? Number one, Canada had the best immigration system in the world that brought in great people who thrived and made the country better. Now we don't, right? Number two, we didn't have to think about crime impacting our daily lives. Now, I'm not going to say people are living in fear, but there's this lingering, persistent anxiety about, is my car going to be there in the morning, home invasion, visible disorder in the streets. And then three is, prices at the grocery stores have been consistent and predictable for most of people's entire adult lives, and now it feels like they're constantly going up. I can't see how any leader of any party could not talk about these issues.
All right. What do you think, Jordan?
Yeah, I agree. These are a couple of the biggest issues that are on people's minds right now, and the way that certain stories are portrayed in the media really has the opportunity to move that needle. I mean, it's an emotional reaction if you see a person invaded a home and killed the father who's defending his family, and then we're having debates about stand your ground laws or palace laws. Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives are going to be on the right side of that and on the side of most of the population. Similarly, on immigration, I agree with all Alex's points. This was swung at one point in the completely other direction, the 2015 campaign, when we saw the migrant washed up on the beach, which kind of spun people more towards having let's take more people in. the Liberals really ramped up their pro-immigration policies, taking as many people as possible. Now that pendulum is shifting in the other direction, and people are struggling with cost of living, affording a home, affording groceries and those things, and so they're looking around and seeing what could be to blame for that. So I think certainly Pierre is on the side of where that pendulum has shifted right now.
Okay. We only have about a minute left here, so we're going to have to be quick. But what did you think? I mean, you're in Toronto. What did you think of Doug Ford pouring out a bottle of Crown Royal in disgust over the closure of a plant in Ontario, Alex?
We make great whiskey in Ontario. We have for longer than Canada's been a country. I think it's time for the province, local governments, industry, and labor to figure out how do we make more whiskey in Ontario, and how do we keep those jobs? How do we bring more? It's good political theater, and it brings attention to the fact that whiskey has traditionally been one of the great Canadian export products. Most of the whiskey made here gets sent south of the border. How do we make sure that continues to happen? We keep the distilleries and bottling plants that we have, and we don't lose any more.
30 seconds or less, Jordan. What did you think of that yesterday?
Yeah, look, I think the Premier has a good ability to get clips like that. It really channels the anger that some of the workers being laid off have felt. We're really going to see this happening into February. I don't know how happy the Premier of Manitoba would have been about this whole thing, because they still rely on on producing Crown Royal there. But look, he got the clip that he was looking for. He's trying to win back some of that popular support.
Yeah. It was as a political photo op and something that would go viral on social media. It was perfectly executed, even though it was a waste of a perfectly good bottle of whiskey. All right, guys.
Should have pulled the inside cap out and went faster.
That's right. Bye-bye.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. It's 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. And today we're going to talk about remote work, hybrid work, working from home. Because more and more employers are telling their workers they have to be back in the office full-time or almost full-time. 4 days a week, 5 days a week. The big banks really led the charge on this. The Royal Bank, the Bank of Montreal, Scotiabank, TD Bank, all saying their workers need to be back in the office at least 4 days a week starting this fall. So, I mean, right about now, it's only a few weeks until the start of fall. Combined, when you think about it, I mean, these are big employers. Those four big banks employ about 150,000 people in Canada. Then in Ontario, the Premier Doug Ford ordered all Government of Ontario employees to be back in the office 4 days a week by the fall, and then 5 days a week by January. Ford insisting it's better for the workers and that it's better for communities to have workers going into the office and then taking their lunch breaks and whatnot in the local business districts of these communities. The Ontario government has about 88,000 employees in the core public service, not including all the teachers in the schools and the support workers and the healthcare workers. 88,000 employees, just people working in various government departments. In the city of Ottawa, in the municipality of your capital city, the mayor of Ottawa has ordered all of the city employees back to the office full-time in the city of Ottawa, big employer, 20,000 or so full-time employees. In the federal government, which is the largest employer in the country, it has more than 350,000 employees all across the country. The current policy is that employees have to be in the office at least 3 days a week. And for managers and executives, they have to be in the office 4 days a week. It's been estimated that about a quarter of those employees are not even following that policy right now. And they're working from home more days than they're supposed to be working from home. The major public service union in the federal government, PSAC, Public Service Alliance of Canada, is not happy with the government's work from home policies, has filed complaints about it. The union says these workers are just as productive working from home than they are in an office environment, and that there's no need to have all of those workers back in an office tower, stuck in traffic, riding public transit. Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario, has called on Mark Carney to follow his lead and bring all the federal employees back to the office 4 days a week and then 5 days a week. But then there's a company like Shopify, which is one of Canada's most successful companies, and by far Canada's most successful technology company. And none of its workers are required to work in the office at all. The policy at Shopify is called digital by default. And the employees are encouraged to work wherever they think they can be most productive. And Shopify is a $250 billion company with about 10,000 employees all over the world, thousands of employees in Canada. And in the last week or so, there have been all kinds of news stories about this issue. More and more people will be going back to work this fall, 4 days a week, 5 days a week. And what is it going to be like when everyone starts going back to the office more often? What is traffic going to be like? Traffic's already a nightmare. What about household budgets? People are going to have to buy lunches again. Household budgets are thin enough as they are. Workers can save money when they work from home. Save money on gas. Save money on parking. Saving money on takeout. And they save time. And you know, time is money. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter where people work. What does it matter as long as the work is getting done? Why does it matter where the work is getting done? What's wrong with a little flexibility? If people like working from home, even if it's just part of the time, isn't a happy worker a more productive worker? I'm sure you've heard this. Some politicians say no. Many employers seem to agree and say corporate culture is eroded when people aren't in the office on a regular basis. Teamwork and collaboration suffer. People need socialization. People need human interaction. Without that, results across an organization can decline. We're going to be hearing a lot about this issue now that summer vacations are over, children are back in school, and Canadian workers are back to reality and back to work and back in the office, maybe more than ever. But where should people be working? Here are some questions for you. If you've done it, what are the benefits of working from home? What are the downsides of working from home? And it would seem the trend of employers is to tell their workers to be in the office full-time or almost full-time. Do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing? Having workers in the office full-time or almost full-time, 4 or 5 days a week. 1-833-668-2577. That's our call-in line, 1-833-668-2577. And we'd love for you to use our call-in line today and join the discussion and tell us what you think, especially if you've worked from home and worked in the office. Which do you prefer? I mean, they each have their benefits. I'm sure they each have their drawbacks. Let's explore them today. 1-833-668-2577. If you've never called before, just mention that to us. We'll make your call a priority. The good, the bad of working from home, the good, the bad of having to go into the office. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. It's Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Hybrid work from home. That's what we're talking about today. More and more organizations, from private companies to governments at all levels, are telling their workers they need to be back in the office full-time, almost full-time, starting this fall. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? What would you say? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? What are the benefits of working from home? What are the downsides of working from home? If you've done both, which do you prefer? Working from home, working in the office, a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, 1-833-668-2577. 3 lines available there for you. We start today in Waterloo with Pete. Hi, Pete. You're on the air. What's your opinion, Pete?
Sorry, it's Afif.
Oh, Afif. Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Afif. Yeah. Hi there. Yeah. What's your opinion?
So I've I worked all like I worked what's that called, like, you know, what's that called, like customer support service from home, and I've also worked as a programmer from home. So working from home is kind of it's fun. I mean, like, because you get to have your own comfort and you get to, like, you know, see your family and everything. But it also has got some issues where when there's like when like you get a little bit too lazy at home too. So when you start working, then you get like lazy and you don't work as excessively as you work at your actual workplace. So
Okay. So do you feel, I mean, in your own experience, it sounds as though you weren't as productive when you were working from home. How accurate would that be?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. Like there was time, like at the beginning, like when they make you go work from home at the beginning. So after like the first like few months, you're pretty productive and you're going like very well. But then as the months go on, you get more lazier and lazier because you get more comfortable at your home. So that's why I kind of believe that they want people to come back. But I think like for a few months at a time at home is fine. But then more than that, it's not.
Okay. So you would view this as maybe a good thing that, you know, companies and governments are telling their workers they need to be back in the office more often, 4 or 5 days a week. That's a good thing.
I would say it's a good thing only if they allow, like they should come back, like let's just say, like, you know, come back for a month, then have them if somebody wants to work from home, then have them work from home for like a month or two and then come back again, just like that, like on and off.
I don't know.
Just so basically they can make you go work from home, and then when you come back here when you come back to the office to work, they can have you do your, like, you know, your team leads talk to you about what's your productivity and everything. So they can help you be more productive at home.
I see. Okay. Afif, thank you. Good to hear from you today. 1-833-668-2577. Up next, Katie in Cambridge. Hello, Katie. You're on the air. Hi, Katie.
Hi there.
Hi, Katie. What's your opinion?
So I have a very keen interest in this topic as a change management professional. I have worked I've worked in management consulting, which means you work remotely, you work on site, you work hybrid, and I've been doing this for about a decade. So I know it can be done, and hybrid working can be done well. You just need the change management to support it. It's a different way of working for a lot of people, especially management. They don't necessarily know how to keep all their teams happy, how to make sure people are collaborating well, making sure that they're using their in-office time productively. They're not making sure necessarily that there is the social time in the office so that there's the right technology. In many cases, they are. And that's why organizations like Shopify are doing so well, because they have the equipment. They've probably invested in training and learning for their management staff to actually do this properly. So I would argue that flexibility is so important for staff, especially women who might have more caring responsibilities, for people with abilities that actually benefit from some of the features of remote work, like transcription recordings of meetings and AI features and things like that. But I would argue that it's not for everyone. It's not for all kinds of jobs. So there's definitely a bit of an equity component to it. But I think it's you know, it's good for people that can do it properly, and if management could just invest a little bit of time and learning and intentional dedication to doing it properly, I think it would be great. And then there's ways to get new employees. One of the arguments is that new employees, they don't get acclimatized. They don't learn about the culture. They don't meet people fast enough.
Okay. Yeah.
Well,
Kind of the whole onboarding, the whole onboarding thing,
Exactly. And
Right.
of course, there has to be ways to help those people get connected. So again, back to management to say, let's find ways to help either remote onboarding work well and make sure people get connections. And help them in the office as well with buddying, with using anchor days for social time. It's just a different way of working that we've really gotten accustomed to through COVID, through needing to work at home. And I feel like now we're getting a bit nervous and scared, and we're getting tired because we're exhausted, and there's a lot going on in the world that we're just defaulting back. A very common change management challenge is defaulting back to what you know. And so I think there's a real opportunity here to try to do this properly.
All right. Very interesting. Thank you for sharing your expertise on the topic today. 1-833-668-2577. Have your say on this one. We have lots of organizations now, private companies, governments, saying COVID is over, the pandemic is over. It's time for everyone to go back to work, get in the office. And by this fall, it's going to be at a lot of organizations 4 days a week, and by January, 5 days a week. Is that good? Is that bad? What do you like about working from home? What are the downsides? If you've done both, what do you prefer? Join the discussion, join the conversation today on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
More and more organizations, private companies, governments are telling their workers they need to be back in the office full-time or almost full-time. Good thing, bad thing? What do you like about working from home? What are the downsides of working from home? Which do you prefer? 1-833-668-2577. Let's go to Calgary today. Guy is in Calgary. Hello, Guy.
Hi, how are you, Rob?
Hi, I'm just great. Thank you. What's your opinion here on the topic today?
So, I just have one quick thing to say about it. My wife works from home 2 days a week, and I have a different kind of a job where I have to move from one quadrant of the city to the other, and my company pays me time on the road. I'm wondering how many companies would be willing to step up and pay for their employees' commute. She spends an hour and a half on the road every day getting into work, and we're only, outside of rush hour, we're only 15 minutes outside of the city. So that's all I had to say. I mean, it would strike me as something that would be might become a bargaining chip for unions.
Maybe.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we actually had some data today on commute times from StatsCan was in the news. The average commute time for someone going to work. This is all across the country now. It's shorter in some cities, longer in others, as you can imagine. The traffic in Toronto, there's a saying now, it takes an hour to get from Toronto to Toronto now, right? But the average commute time is about 26 minutes. Okay, that's one way, 26 minutes. So you have people, this is an extra hour out of their day just to get to work. Should they be compensated for that? That's what you're asking, right?
Yeah, I think they should be because technically you're on the clock for the company. I mean, I'm getting paid for it. I get a flat rate from whatever I have to go, and if I have to do that every day, then they give me that flat rate on my paycheck every 2 weeks. So
right.
I mean, there's a lot
so
of people
your
that
wife,
don't get that.
Does your wife work from home full time?
No, 2 days a week.
No,
and
2 days a week. Okay.
Yeah. So and that she went from full time through the COVID, and then back to 2 days a week, and it looks as though they're going to try and carve some more of that out. But thankfully, she's got a union that's behind her, and I don't think that's going to happen. But overall, I think it would be, for most.
I don't want to pry, but is it a government job? Is it a government job that your wife is
No,
doing, or is it?
No,
It's a private company.
She works for a utility company. Yeah.
A utility. Okay. All right. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, maybe you're right. When it comes to collective agreements, I mean, I know with PSAC, the big federal government union, they want to make this whole work from home part of the next collective bargaining negotiation. They want to make a big, and maybe codify it in a contract. Okay, this is when we're going to be in the office, and this is when workers will be allowed to be at home. Whether they can go a step further and say, and if the worker has to come into the office, you have to compensate them for the hour that it's going to take to get there and back. I don't know, maybe a tough sell for an employer to accept that.
Well, sick days too, right? My wife works when she's sick, when she can work at home, and she wouldn't be able to otherwise.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you, Guy. Interesting points. Be right back. Remote work from home, our topic of the day. And employers telling workers more and more often, you have to come back to the office full-time, almost full-time. What do you think of that? 1-833-668-2577.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Talking about remote work and the trend of companies and governments telling their workers they need to be back in the office full-time, almost full-time by the fall or in the new year. What do you think about that trend? Good? Bad? What do you like about working from home? What don't you like? What do you prefer? 1-833-668-2577 to Halifax today. Anne is in Halifax. Hi, Anne. Hello, Anne. Can you hear me? Oh, it's Al in Halifax. Okay, let's try Al in Halifax then. Hello,
Hi,
Al.
how you doing?
I'm good, Al.
Hi.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think companies or the government should randomly just tell people to go back to work just because. I think it's a case-by-case basis, and there's a way of monitoring employees to make sure they're doing good work from home if it's possible, then why be it? My job, I'm an inspector, so I work in the field, so there's no opportunity for me to work from home, but several people in my office work from home, and I don't see them for months at a time, and it doesn't bother me one bit. I mean, it's less cars on the road, it's less pollution for the environment, it's saving companies money because there's less electricity. I get the win-win if people that can effectively work from home are allowed to do so.
Okay. What about the other side of the argument is that what about team building? What about things like mentorship? What about teamwork, collaboration in the workplace? These sorts of things. And what about the broader community? To have entire downtowns with the big office towers kind of hollowed out and all of these people working from home. What about the local businesses? What about the public transit system that is robbed of riders? These, there are a lot of other issues here to this topic beyond just the benefits of working from home, right?
Yeah, there definitely is. And I think collaboration among certain people in an office environment is always great, and you can always create that outside the work environment as well. You could have, a bowling night or day. You can have in certain meetings, you can make them mandatory that you have to be in person. But overall, if someone's physically not required to be at work and they're more effective to be at home, I just think it's better. And I know people in the federal government in Halifax, they were told to go back to work last year, and pretty much this individual's whole office can work from home. And the reason they were given, just like one of the ones you said, is restaurants were complaining because they're not getting service. Well, they have to adjust, any business. I feel bad for them. I'm not saying that, but they have to adjust their business model to accommodate the audience you're trying to grab, I guess.
Okay. So you think it's kind of arbitrary. That's the word you used, arbitrary, right?
Yeah.
Too sweeping, if you will.
Yeah, I don't think you should make someone go back to work just because. If you hired someone, you should be trusting them to be an effective, good worker. You shouldn't mistrust them from the start. So if you trust someone, you should trust them to be effective at work. And if you don't trust that person, I guess it was probably the wrong person to choose to work. And in some jobs, you can monitor by caseload what an employee does during the day, so they're not just doing nothing. right?
Yeah, no, remotely. I mean, there are all kinds of ways that employers can monitor their employees. Especially if the device, the electronic device, is a corporate device, they know when it's logged on and everything else, right?
Yeah.
So,
and some even monitor every keystroke and every word you type. So, I mean, like I said, if you can do it effectively and it doesn't affect your workload or your, it's like the team building and the other aspects of work. Yeah, productivity. Yeah. Why not? I mean, some people are more productive at home, and I enjoy banter when I do in the office with some people, but some people just go from desk to desk to desk all day, just talking to people too. So there's that. You're losing hours a day.
There is that. Yeah.
By certain people that just bounce from desk to desk talking. And I mean, it's nice to be social within reason, but if it's affecting productivity and other workers, some people I know prefer to work from home because they get a lot more work accomplished because they're not disturbed during the day.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Great points all around. So many hot points you hit on there. Great start to the conversation here in our second half hour. Let's go to Anne now, who's not in Halifax. Anne's in Calgary today. Hi, Anne.
Hello.
Hi, Anne. What do you think? Work from home. What do you think?
I'm really happy to talk about this topic. I have been working remotely from home ever since the pandemic. It's been amazing. I feel like I'm way more productive, and I'm really grateful for that opportunity to work from home and have that more flexibility. I agree with a lot of the points that were made about like saving so much money, and as far as like commuting, the whole thing, buying coffees, you end up spending a lot more money when you're, working in the office. And I also find that I'm more productive because I'm so grateful that I can work from home. And like other callers have said, if I'm, a little bit sick, head cold or something like that, I don't mind working, or I'll do my training and all that. But, so I feel that I'm way more productive. And I think it's great for the climate as well.
Is there anything you miss about going into work?
Since I've been doing this for a while, the only thing that I miss is maybe like the brainstorming. It's difficult. It's harder to do in a virtual environment, but with the tools that we have for collaboration, we've all learned to adjust. So I work for an international company. I work across different time zones. Nobody really works in the office anymore. So I think that has been the biggest adjustment. As far as like socializing, I also talking about like the social aspects of it. The other caller had mentioned, some of the organizations that I worked with, they've been really creative about, more doing like virtual events and things like that. So for me, it's a win, huge win. I love it.
Huge win. So you probably don't like this trend then. A lot of big employers saying, sorry, you got to come into the office 4 days a week, 5 days a week.
No, I don't really agree with it, but my personal.
What if your employer said? What if your employer said, "Sorry, Anne, dream life is over. Back to the office."
I'd probably look for different work.
You would? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I
Interesting.
would.
Thank you, Anne. Great to hear from you today. Be right back on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
More employers are telling their workers they need to be back in the office full-time, almost full-time. What do you think about that? That's our topic for today here on Talkback. Andrew in Calgary. Hi, Andrew.
Hey there, Rob. Happy Wednesday to you.
Yeah. Great. Good to hear from you, Andrew. What's your opinion?
Just my 2 cents. I think I look at it like, the one constant in the universe is change. And I think companies need to realize that this is going to need to be an option in the future,
Okay.
And in very near future, and they should prepare for it if this is something that the job can, incorporate. Too many old managers, I think, equate production to hours in the office as opposed to the production being done. So, and they just can't get their head out of that mentality. I think someone else mentioned before, it's going to require some new training and some new mindsets. But I think they need to be prepared that this needs to be something they need to be able to offer. It's an incentive for a lot of good people, a lot of good workers, and they want to retain that. We all know we're all headhunting for other people all over the place. So it's a good incentive. It's going to be the future. We need to be able to incorporate this.
Okay. Right now, it's about 17% of the workforce is working from home most of the time. That's a StatsCan number. They release that number every now and then with the labor force survey. 17.4% of the workforce working from home most of the time. I guess what I want to get at is, what about these flip side arguments about productivity or even the health of the community? I mean, is it better for the community, to have workers, in the business districts, in the offices, mingling, socializing, having lunches, these sorts of things? What do you think about that?
I also think that is sort of an old school mentality type of thing. We've created all these downtown areas and companies, or areas, and that's old. I mean, cities expand. People are on the fringes. It doesn't make sense to have a core anymore with all the businesses doing all their stuff. So I think it needs to evolve, just like cities.
Needs to evolve. Fair enough. Okay. Thank you so much. Yeah. Interesting point, Andrew. Thank you. In Waterloo, Jeff is in Waterloo. Hi, Jeff.
Today.
Very good, Jeff. Thank you. What's your opinion on our topic today?
Well, I listen to your show quite a bit, and you've talked a lot about the dismal state of the job prospects in Canada right now, and it's pretty disheartening. I've been self-employed most of my life. I've also done contract work for teaching at the colleges. And so there's one example where, during COVID, I had to teach remotely, and it was a great solution for the problem for the time, but it's not the same as being in front of a class of students and teaching them in person. The difference is huge. And I don't know the stat because I'm in my car right now, but I think a majority of Canadians are still employed by small to mid-sized businesses. So when we talk about cultures of insurance companies and banks and stuff like that, it's a very different dynamic than the companies that are employing most of Canadians. So I had 25 employees for 16, 17 years, and it's my culture. And when I hire somebody and I say, okay, you have to be in the office 5 days a week, you can take the job or not take the job, but individual employers have the right to determine their culture of their business, and they're probably doing it for the right reasons most of the time because they know what does and doesn't work. And when I'm saying that, I'm not against working from home. I think it can work great for some businesses, but this is up to the employers to decide. And my point is, most of the employers, I think, are small to mid-sized businesses, and unions, as far as I'm concerned, have no right to stick their nose into this at all. But that's just my opinion.
Well, I mean, it could be a bargaining chip, though, for the union. They could try and make it an issue, right? Okay.
Well, they can, but again, good jobs are hard to come by, and it's like the post office fighting for a sinking ship right now. It's how about you start trying to work with your employer and do whatever they want you to do to make things better.
Yeah.
And that's
look
all
around the labor market. Look around the labor market. Unemployment is on the rise. Jobs are hard to come by. If your employer says he wants you back in the office, or they want you back in the office full time or almost full time, you really want to look, that gift horse in the mouth of a full time job, right?
Yeah, and there's not a lot of good jobs out there anymore. There really isn't, in my opinion. And I think there's a little bit of employee arrogance going on sometimes. And I think I just feel that I like the idea of working from home. I mean, I've done both, but it only works for certain jobs. It doesn't work for when I was doing contract teaching. It was a bad idea.
Okay. All right. Really interesting. Thank you. 1-833-668-2577. Work from home, remote work, the trend of employers calling their employees back to the office. Full-time, almost full-time. What do you think of that? On Talkback today on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Are more employers wanting more of their workers back in the office more often? Let's go to Mark in Calgary. Hi, Mark.
Hey, Rob, how are you?
Just great, Mark. What's your opinion, Mark?
So I'm a big advocate for having a positive workforce, and I find if you've got people that can work from home, I feel like if you allow them to do that and they still do a good job, why force them back to come back to the office? I mean, I feel if you have a positive workforce and, you know, somebody who enjoys doing what they do at work, they're going to be a lot more productive. And I just feel if employers are going to start forcing people to come back to the workplace just because, I feel like that's going to really have a real negative impact. Now, I mean, I work for the government, and for my job, I work in law enforcement, and I can't do work from home, but I'm okay with that. I do have some colleagues who work kind of more in the office, and they work from home, and again, that's okay. And I find that quite often they come across as a lot more positive because they're able to work from home. And I don't, in this day and age, why are we taking that away from them and just forcing them back to work? That's kind of what
All right. Thank you, Mark, for having your say. To Stefan, also in Calgary today. Hello, Stefan.
Hello. I guess I wanted to play a bit of a devil's advocate because I think one of the that's missing. So I totally understand the caller, the contractor that was talking about his employee. But one thing about employees being more accepting of managers or their bosses' culture, and I'll disagree with that a bit. I agree that definitely has to happen. That's an important part of any kind of working environment. But I think he has to see that there's potential change in the future. So all of those positions that don't require anybody to be where they have to be, it's the manager's responsibility to still keep it cohesive, have it collaborative, and they're the ones that need to take the onus and responsibility of finding and making sure the business still works. So relying on your old culture, I question and say, when you say it worked, did it work? When it works, does it work, or did it work? So you got to look a little bit further into the future in terms of what's
So take a company like, let's take a company like the Royal Bank, big company, probably more than 50,000 employees, most valuable company in the country, says this fall we expect all of our workers to be back in the office 4 days a week because we believe at the Royal Bank of Canada that is part of building a winning culture. What would you say to that?
Oh, that's perfect. Okay, so that's in my experience, that's just an excuse for weak leadership. So those are people that are relying on their old habits, saying this is the way we used to build collaboration, this is how we used to brainstorm, and we don't want to put the energy forward to be able to learn a new way to bring people together that are in separate locations. So that's the big thing that COVID did, really. It changed the onus of responsibility in terms of making the workforce efficient on the managers 100%. So now you've got these guys that used to come in and do team building, and we did this and we did this, and then all of a sudden COVID happened, and they didn't know how to continue to build the teams when your team was separated. So now they're just reverting back. They're saying, we're much more comfortable with everybody here. That's why everybody has to have the heavy-handed come back to work, because we don't know how to lead or manage our people when they're in different locations.
All right. Thank you. Interesting. Very interesting opinions today on this topic. We'll pick it up right after the latest breaking news, a full hour just ahead of Talkback. on News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
So we have been talking today about remote work, hybrid work, working from home. The reason we've been talking about this, of course, is, well, summer vacation is over for a lot of people, and it's back to work for a lot of people. And more employers, whether it's private companies or governments, they're telling their employees, we would like you back in the office. If you please, full-time, almost full-time, 4 or 5 days a week. We want to know, do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing? What do you think of the benefits of working from home, the downsides of working from home? If you've done both, which do you prefer? Working from home, working in the office, a little bit of both? 1-833-668-2577. Very busy first hour, but there are lines available. And let's get things underway in hour number 2 of Talkback. I'm Rob Snow, and let's go to Karen, who's up first here in Halifax. Hi, Karen.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm just great, Karen. Thank you. What's your opinion?
Great. Well, my opinion is, would you want to go back to the office if your utilities and everything were being partially paid? It may not be for everybody, but I've heard many people talk and make comments about, my cable bill gets paid or my wireless bill gets paid or my toiletries, I claim some of that. May not apply to everybody.
Right. But what if it did, would there be a big rush to want to go back and lose those benefits, right? That's what you're saying.
That's right.
Yeah.
So it's probably, not going to happen. People will want to stay home and enjoy those extra perks.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, some employers are helping to offset the cost of internet usage or whatever. I don't know about, utility bills like heat and electricity and those kinds of things, or toiletries for that matter. I haven't heard of that.
Maybe not all, but I think for the economy, I think people should be back to work.
Now, why do you say that? That's interesting. Why do you say that?
It helps everybody.
That it's better for the community to have people kind of in the city, going to shops, going to restaurants, maybe even taking public transit.
Moving.
Keeps everything moving. Okay. So you think on the whole, it's probably better just for the country to have more people.
Unless you're your own business owner, you choose to do your work from home, sure. But, if you're an employee working for an employer, I think, it would be good to have people back to work.
We need you back, you should go back.
Certainly. And if they want to go find another job, I know here in the Maritimes, good luck. They're not plentiful.
Well, yeah. Good luck. Isn't that it? All right. Thank you. Very good, Karen. Thank you. To Alan in Calgary. Thanks for calling, Alan. Great to take your call today.
I'm in favor of being able to work from home. And, for example, the Royal Banks that wants people 5 days a week, Well, it may be a bit ridiculous, but the hospitals are open 24/7, and they don't expect their employees to be there 24/7. They could. Some people could be. I think minimum you should be working. A maximum is 4 days a week, and they could, they have different people on different schedules. With regards to the social aspect, some people are antisocial, and they could be working 7 days a week, and they're still going to be antisocial, or they have an abrasive personality. So I don't buy that. I think flexible and being able to work from home is an excellent idea. But the policeman that phoned in and says, he can't work from home, obviously. A nurse in an emergency and the hospital can't, and there's certain professions that can't.
Yeah, that person who was in law enforcement also said, but he has people within the organization who work from home at least part of the time, and he doesn't have a problem with that.
Right. And with regard to economics, I've worked downtown, I'm an old guy, and I've worked downtown probably for 55 years, and the city has changed substantially. And I would shop downtown, but now that I'm retired, I shop in the suburbs. I just don't have to fight the traffic going downtown.
Okay.
So
I'm sure, maybe a lot of other people who are working from home, maybe they're shopping as much as they used to shop anyway.
As a matter of fact, I think I shop more. Maybe I should be better if I was back at work.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Alan, for hanging in there and having your say. How about Sylvia? Yeah, I think we can take Sylvia's call here, also in Nova Scotia today. Hello, Sylvia.
Hi, how are you doing?
Very good, Sylvia. What's your opinion?
Well, I think there's a lot of different factors involved. Your industries, different industries, of course, you're going to have to go to work. But myself, I am not good with working from home. I had a fabulous opportunity years ago to work for a very large company, and I just couldn't do it from home. I need to get my butt out the door and go to my office. And I think it's an individual thing.
Okay. And why is that? Like, why didn't work from home work for you? What was it about being at home?
I'm not self-motivated to work from home. If you're good at that, great. If you're not, go back to your office. No, I was not self-motivated.
You're kind of like me with my dog. Like, one of the reasons I have a dog is that it gets me out of the house.
Yeah, something like that, I guess. If you want to make that reference, sure. But okay. Yeah, like I want to get out. My home is my sanctuary, my refuge. It's mine. It's not my work area. But you know what? If that works for other people, that's great. But me, it's like, nope, I need to get out the door. And I feel like I have responsibilities when I get out the door instead of just like, yeah, okay. Like I've heard other callers say, like, yeah, you could, I look at this and I could do this and I could do that. And it's like, no, I need to go to my place of work and then come home.
Interesting. Okay. Thank you, Sylvia, for hanging in there. Sylvia is a creature of habit who needs to go to work, needs to go into the office on a daily basis. A lot of people are like that. Well, there's certainly a generational divide when it comes to our views of working from home. There was a new poll about that today from Angus Reid that we can talk about. But your thoughts first. With more employers telling their workers they need to be back in the office full-time, almost full-time, good thing, bad thing, your thoughts on the benefits of working from home versus being in the office on Talkback today. Hour number 2 here on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
I've been talking about the wonderful world of work today. With more employers saying, we would like you back in the office full-time or almost full-time. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? To Mississauga, Amanda on the line from Mississauga. What's your opinion, Amanda? Thanks for calling.
Well, thank you so much for having this conversation. I find it fascinating. The organization that I worked for actually went remote in 2018. So we were perfectly set up for the COVID disruptions. And we found that it's increased our productivity. Our team is happier. There's been cost savings. We've been able to do really creative things. Getting together with staff outside of work hours, finding ways to even incorporate people's families in our get-togethers, so we still have this collegiality, if you will, and connection with one another. And we've also been able to employ people with physical disabilities or difficulties with mobility. So I think if you are able to think outside of the box and maybe give it a bit of a try, working from home remote, if obviously the profession allows you to do that, can actually be a cost savings to the organization and can increase employee happiness. That's what we keep hearing, is that people enjoy working from home, feels like it creates a bit of a better life balance. And if you or your callers have ever driven in the GTA, it also saves people a lot of time being on the busy highways that we have around here. And that just seems to lower people's stress and increase their happiness. So if the profession allows it, I think that it's worth a try. And I'm a little sad to hear that people are being forced to go back in the office, because I do think that it's a beautiful balance if you can strike it.
Okay. You don't have to tell me the name of the company, but I'm curious to know what kind of industry you're in.
Yeah, it's sales. We're in sales, so
in sales. Okay.
If you have to be on the road, you can be on the road. But for so much of our work that's often just sitting at desks or making phone calls, the ability to do that from home has been wonderful. And one of your previous callers was right. There's tax benefits to that if you work from home. If you have a home office, you can get a little bit of a tax break. So we've only seen it increase productivity and happiness in our organization. So
very, very interesting. So does your company have an office at all? Like even with a skeleton staff?
We used to, and we sold that. So,
really?
I didn't sell it.
No, you didn't,
the owners did.
The owners did. So you're 100% virtual.
Yes, and for people who want to be a part of like a work environment on a regular basis, a lot of cities, at least here in the GTA, they have co-working hubs. And so the company actually offers a small stipend to cover that. If you'd rather get out of your house and work in a co-working space, there's lots of different co-working spaces across the GTA, probably across other places in Canada, and the company pays for that if that's what you want. So, yeah, I think there's ways to be flexible. Again, the company I work for introduced this way before COVID, and it seems to be working, and we're sticking with it.
Very cool. Thank you, Amanda, for calling and sharing that. To Halifax again. Eric is on the line in Halifax. Hi, Eric.
Hey, hi, Todd. Hi, Rob. This is a very complicating situation because, well, like I was telling Curtis, when you went to apply for a job, and this is way before COVID, you went there with the, that you were going to stay, you work out of an office. You weren't going to work at home. Now, all your callers are saying, yeah, it's a good thing to be at home, but your employer, he or she, is probably wondering, well, what is Mary doing today, or what is Sally doing today? I'd rather have Sally here because that way I could, get her at the spur of the moment. Because if I call at home and she's talking to her father or her mother-in-law or something like that, then he can't get through. So it's a 50-50 situation. I mean, it's a real complicating scenario to bring up.
But I think part of what you're saying is people signed up, went and applied for jobs and got jobs, especially before COVID, with the understanding, well, you're going to be in an office, whatever, or an office-like setting, 4 or 5 days a week, probably 5 days a week, maybe even and more than that. But now there's this whole idea of, well, I'd like to work from home part of the time is kind of creeped in. And if you're the employer, maybe that's, you're looking at the employee and saying, well, that wasn't the deal originally anyway. Right, Eric?
That's
right?
True. But
that's true. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
You were hired to be in the office. I mean, you weren't hired to be at home, because at home you're more at ease if there's some discrepancy or some bad things going on at the office. Yeah. I mean, you like to be out of there and knowing that you're home, you don't have to put up with all the hassle. So it's a real tough situation. It's a 50-50 deal. And I think from an employer's point of view, he or she would like to have you there because that's what we hired you for.
Okay. Thank you, Eric. Bye-bye. Be right back on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Talking about working from home, remote work, hybrid work, whatever you want to call it, and the trend that is seeing more employers calling their employees back to the office full-time, almost full-time, governments, big banks, other big companies, whether you think this is a good thing or a bad thing. 1-833-668-2577. To Robert up next. Robert's in Calgary today. Hi, Robert.
Hello.
Yeah, hi, Robert. What's your opinion here?
This is slightly tangential, but I'm going to throw a bit of a monkey wrench into this thing. I would say a significant percentage, certainly not all, of jobs that can be done from work from home can be done by artificial intelligence. And
maybe
anything that is just computer data entry, things that are writing, other things, there's a fair bit of it can be. And I think that's going to become a future of the work from home. And as artificial intelligence gets better, it's going to become even more so. So I'd be really worried if I was a person who really could just work from home unless there's something more than just data entry and other answering phones and things.
They're more vulnerable to the disruption in the workforce that will come as a result of artificial intelligence.
Well, I believe that the bosses will certainly see it that way. If they can do this, then maybe an AI system can do that job.
Right. That if they're not here and I never see them, then maybe they're more easily replaceable by AI.
Well,
maybe there's something to that. I'm not sure.
One of the things recognized for a long time, is that when it comes time for company layoffs, it's a heck of a lot easier to lay off somebody that you've never seen in the office than somebody you interface with every day. So there's vulnerabilities there.
Yeah, perhaps so. Yeah, you may be right there. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
That was it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's not much of a monkey wrench. Not much of a monkey wrench. Thank you. David up next. David, what are your thoughts, David?
Hey, hi Rob. Thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure.
Yeah, so I've kind of done both. I think during COVID and after, I spent 4 years working from home. It was great. I had a couple young kids. I felt I was able to be more productive. And then sometimes when, it got a little stressful or a little burnt out, I could go play with the kids, get a little recharge there and kind of go back to work. I was working in accounting, so it was really, really easy to interface with the rest of the team and things like that. And I just feel like for other certain qualities, it's really good for employees if they're able,
Okay, so what do you think about this trend? We have a lot of large employers, even governments are saying, four days a week this fall, and then by the new year, 5 days a week. We want you in the office. We think it would be better for you as an employee, and we think it would be better for the city that people work in.
I mean, I have a feeling it's going to be better for, the city, quote unquote, because I have heard, I don't know, just the stories that you hear, it's that there's a push for the bigger companies to get employees out there and spending money in the economy, you know what I mean? Buying gas, going out for lunch, little things like that. I've heard tell of that from friends and colleagues and things like that they feel that's a lot where this big push is coming from, because it was like a couple callers ago said, there could be significant cost savings for companies. So yeah, I don't know. It's what it kind of feels like to me, because I've done both. Okay. And now I'm hybrid, so I get basically work from home on Fridays, and it's just a wonderful little change, and still I've had no troubles forming relationships. So
very good. Thank you, David. Good to hear from you and get your opinion on the matter. And we'll get more opinions right after the news on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Well, certainly been a very busy topic today, but we have cleared the phone line, so every single phone line is available on this topic today of hybrid work from home, remote work, whatever you want to call it. We have more and more organizations saying we need you back in the office, people, full-time, almost full-time. Many of them saying it will ease you back into it. Come back 4 days a week in the fall, but come January, it's going to be 5 days a week. Okay, everybody's getting back to normal. We just want to know, do you think that's a good thing, a bad thing? What do you view as the benefits of working from home, the downsides of working from home? If you've done both, what do you prefer? Home life, office life? 1-833-668-2577 for your work life. About a week ago, StatsCan released some numbers. You may have read about it in the news. The percentage of Canadians who are working from home most of the time is 17.4% of the total workforce. And that was down compared to the same time last year. The number was a little more than 18%, not down by much. But working from home most of the time, 18% of the workforce. That report actually wasn't about commuting. It wasn't about work from home. It was about commuting times. And this is one of the questions, with more and more people going back into the office more often. What impact is that going to have on everyone's commute? What is it going to mean, for example, for the use of public transit? Average commute time for someone going to work, just going to work, 26 minutes. Got to get home again. Hasn't changed much over the last year. Toronto, the average commute time, longer, of course. Toronto traffic, like a nightmare, 35 minutes. Vancouver, 31 minutes. Montreal, 29 minutes. In Calgary, average commute time, 27 minutes. In Kitchener, Waterloo, 24 minutes. In Halifax, 24 minutes. 24 minutes. But there are questions. How's that going to change when more and more people start going back to work more often, full-time or almost full-time in the office? And for public transit use, what's it going to mean for public transit use? That is a big complaint from people and from unions. They don't like the idea and are pushing back against the idea of workers having to go into the office full-time or almost full-time, because people are already spending an hour a day, in some places even longer than that, driving in rush hour traffic, fighting rush hour traffic. Do we really need more of this? More drivers on the road, more vehicles on the road. Environmental impacts. What about the cost of workers, putting gas in the car, paying for parking, all the other costs that go along with just going into the office, buying coffees, buying lunch. People are stretched thin as it is, and they can save money by not going into the office. And if they're still productive at home, or as productive as at home, why force people into rush hour traffic? It's a flip side to that we hear from municipal leaders, and that's the whole public transit issue. Public transit use plummeted during the pandemic. Puts a lot of pressure on local municipal budget. Costs a lot of money to run a public transit system in a major Canadian city, as I'm sure you know. And those public transit systems, they need passengers back on buses, back on trains, paying fares. And what's one way to get people back to riding public transit? You make them go back to work in the office. I know I covered this a big issue when I was doing radio news in the city of Ottawa, the capital city, where the federal government is the biggest employer, and the city in Canada with the highest percentage of workers who are still working from home most of the time, federal government employees. It has been very tough on the public transit system, very tough on the local council, the mayor, to try and balance the budget for public transit without cutting routes. And that's why some people who are opposed to this push to get these employers back into the office, they say these are political motivations. They don't necessarily make sense for worker well-being. That's why they want to get people back to work, because they need people taking public transit. And as well, downtown businesses need customers. Downtown traditional commercial districts, really hard time, because people aren't going to the office as often as they used to. It's just not the foot traffic that there used to be. Long before anyone ever heard of COVID-19. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. Some of the issues at play when we talk about this issue. Andy in Lacombe.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very good, Andy. Thank you. What do you think about the topic?
Well, you hit what I was going to talk about, too, is the time it takes to travel to work. So you're adding an extra hour for people. Basically, total remuneration for an employee is being cut when they have to go back to the office, when they become adapted to not being there 5 days a week. So it's been a way for employers to essentially increase pay or increase money in people's pockets without having to actually cost the employer any more money. But now it's going to cost employees more money to go back to the office, whether it's childcare for longer or cost of second vehicle, gas, lunches, coffee,
parking. Yeah.
Parking. Like, these all cost individuals money, and like.
Oh, sure. Like, I don't know what's a parking spot in a parking garage in Calgary. Like, what does that cost these days? Hundreds of dollars, probably, right? A month.
You're spending $500 a month probably to rent a spot.
Right.
And it's not a reasonable cost in reality. So yeah, you're back to public transit. You're parking outside of downtown if you can get a spot at a different train station, and then you're paying for the transit and increasing your time for travel. It's not reasonable if you've adapted to working from home. If it's only a couple days a week and that's what you've been doing, sure, so be it. But now it's going to cost people more money. And when people are looking at a new job, you're always taking into consideration how it's going to affect your life as is. Like, they're going to give me a company vehicle. I can get rid of my truck. They're going to give me this. I don't have to pay my phone bill. But now all of a sudden it's, okay, well, my current job is going to cost me an extra $1,000 a month just to stay employed working there. I think it's going to cause a lot of issues that way for a lot of people.
Okay. Yeah. And strain household budgets as well. Curtis says $300 a month for a parking spot in Calgary, for example. In the core of Calgary. 1-833-668-2577. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
One of the biggest promoters of getting more employees back into the office more often has been the Ontario Premier Doug Ford. He was talking about this the other day. Wants everyone to get back to normal. Remember life as it was before the pandemic, when the local lunch counter or the local deli or the local shawarma shop could make a living off a lunch hour crowd. A lot harder to do these days because there just aren't as many employees in the office towers of the nation as there used to be. So that's why that's part of the reason why he's ordering his government employees back to work. And he has called on Prime Minister Mark Carney to have the federal government do the same thing. And remember, federal government, largest employer in the country. There was a new poll out today about this very topic, working from home and the push on by large employers to get people back into the office full-time, almost full-time. Angus Reid Institute. It was specifically about federal government workers and whether they should be back into the office full-time. Public support rather split on the issue. 45% say they're in favor of it, 43% against it. That's kind of the top line number. But then you dig a little deeper and you find out, well, if you already work for the government, then 53% are opposed to the idea of workers being back full-time in the office, 36% in favor. I was surprised it was that high. Digging even further, among those who have experience working from home, the opposition is higher. 64% say the government doesn't need to bring its government workers back to the office full-time. For those who have never worked from home, however, only 47% say they're against the idea. Kind of interesting. And as I said, there's a generational divide on this. Older Canadians are more inclined to think hybrid work should end. Younger Canadians are less in favor of ending the idea of remote work. So as I say, a gender divide there. But that was about just federal government employees. And right now, the federal government rules, maybe they change in the future. Maybe Mark Carney listens to Doug Ford. The federal government rules right now are you're in the office 3 days a week. If you're a manager or an executive, you're higher up on the food chain in the federal public service, you have to be in 4 days a week. But there was a news report that said about 25% of the people don't follow those rules, and they're working from home more often than they're supposed to under the current rules. Karen is in Calgary. Hi, Karen. Thanks for calling, Karen.
Hi there.
Yeah, hi there.
Karen here.
What's your opinion?
How are you doing?
Very good. Thank you. What's your opinion?
Good. I think there's definitely value to both being in person for full-time work, and then obviously we're in this digital age where everything can also be done remotely. I think a balance is key, but I think when you give people the autonomy of full time from home, it definitely comes with its challenges back in office. The reason I was actually calling in was in regards to the previous topic as well around like what happens when we do mandate workers back in office and now maybe they've moved outside of their cities and towns into smaller towns for affordability. And they're
for
driving
housing affordability issues. And good point.
And
nobody's brought that up yet, really. Yeah.
No, and so those workers might not actually be in your downtown cores anymore since COVID as well. So something we've kind of pondered with in Calgary and in BC is utilizing HOV lanes to set up carpooling stations. So it's been very interesting to be working with a startup over here in Calgary on that. But we're seeing a lot of pushback, or definitely enterprise wants workers back in office and they'd be able to track it as well. But as you say, how do you measure the compliance of people actually being there? And then how do you give them the benefit? But I'll leave you with that carpooling and this sort of
okay, that's it.
technique.
Yeah, that's interesting, but that's something that hasn't been brought up yet. Do you think back to the pandemic days and all the people are like fleeing the cities for small town life? I can work from anywhere. Work from home is the new thing. Well, what now? What
does
now?
that mean?
That you have, you're an hour and a half outside of the city. Yeah. Okay. All right. Interesting. Karan, thank you. Karan in Calgary. Be right back with a few more of your thoughts on the topic today on Talkback. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Dallas and Cambridge up next. Hi, Dallas.
Yes, sir. How you doing today?
Yes. Very good. On the work from home issue, what's your opinion?
Well, I'm just catching the tail end of your show here, unfortunately. But trust me, if I could teach my lift truck to run remotely, I would love to work from home. Unfortunately, I'm not able to do that. There's a couple of callers I heard. The one talking about the threat of the AI thing. Well, that may be a very real threat to people working at home. There was another gentleman that was talking about it's easier to lay off somebody that you never see. That may be a threat too for people that's working at home. I don't know if anybody's actually touched on this part of it, but
okay.
There's a lot of employers, I'm sure namely the governments, but there's a lot of employers that are renting floor space. Let's face it, the commercial floor space or office floor space is not cheap these days.
Oh, no.
And they're walking around looking at empty floors saying, well, why am I paying this?
Sure. Yeah.
And quite frankly, those leases are not cheap to get out of either. So they're saying, well, why am I paying for this when that guy or girl is sitting at home and they should be using this office or this cubicle? I think there's a role in there.
Good point.
That's
good
playing
point.
too.
As
far as the arguments about, the delis aren't making money and all this kind of stuff, it's going to cost the people more money buying lunches and such. Pack your lunch. I pack my lunch every day.
Okay.
There's all kinds of pros and cons to it. I've been listening to this go on now for the last 5-6 months, the arguments back and forth. I don't know. If you're running your own business, then sure, run it from home. I mean, that's a no-brainer. But if you're working for an actual employer and the employer wants you to go back to the office, then I think your obligation is to go back to that office. Simple
Fair
as
enough.
that.
Thank you, Dallas. Thank you. I'm just going to move along and fit in Kevin here. Probably get the last word today on Talkback. Also in Waterloo today. Kevin.
Last word. Good for me. I think working from home works, providing you have productivity measures. You have some way to actually determine that people are using their time effectively. I know of cases where people are technically working from home, and they're not really working from home. They're doing the grocery shopping. They're doing stuff with their kids. They're not actually being productive. I worked in software. It was very easy to measure productivity in that case when you're working in Agile.
Yeah, very interesting. Okay. But you suspect that there are people who are working from home who would say look, I'm every bit as productive as I would be if I was in an office environment, and you're saying, yeah, I don't think so. I think I saw you at the mall the other day.
There's a lot of people slacking off, but you need to have ways to measure that they're actually being productive. I've heard a number of people on your call saying, of course we're being productive. We're working from home. We're doing great. Things are great. We're very sociable.
Some people say they're more productive because there are fewer distractions.
There's a fewer distractions, but are they actually being very productive?
Okay. Well, I would believe them. I would give them the benefit of the doubt. But that's just me. Thank you, Kevin. You get the last word, but thank you. And thank you for all your calls. Very busy. Really enjoyed the discussion today. Brand new topic tomorrow. More of your calls and always the latest breaking news. Coming up next on News Radio.